Welcome again to the Rocket Dad podcast. I'm Rich Antonelli. This is episode number 16, and it's an episode I was looking forward to and really excited about because my guest today is producer Michael Wagener. Now, you could be listening to this podcast driving or wherever you listen to podcasts, and you're saying to yourself, well, who's Michael Wagener? I'm going to let you know. He has probably worked on or produced more than a few of your favorite albums, from Ozzy to Metallica to Warrant to White Lion to Extreme to Skid Row, to Great White's breakthrough album back in the 80s, all the way up to their current album, which just came out this June of 2017, called Full Circle. Now, this will also be a video cast that will be on my YouTube channel probably a week or two after this podcast is live, and you really should check that out because, and I joke with Michael during this interview, you'll hear it, he looks like he's at his studio, which is called Wire World, and he looks like he's sitting in the middle of a guitar center, a giant guitar center, because there's probably 5,200 guitars hanging on the wall behind him, all this recording gear and amplifiers, and there he is sitting right in the middle of it all with a big smile on his face. And I guess I would be smiling too because it looks like Candyland or Willy Wonka's factory. It's perfect in my eyes. So definitely check that out on YouTube, my YouTube channel. Like I said, a week or two after this is live. Now, we talked a little bit about the recording of Full Circle with Great White, how that came about because he hadn't worked with them since, way back in the 80s. I brought up some of my favorite albums that he's done, and we talked about how he got the guitar tones on some of those because he gets insane sounding guitar tones. His use of the Kemper profiling amplifier, we brought that up. We talked a little bit about that. He also worked with Janet Jackson, which a lot of people don't know. I asked him about Vito Bratta of White Lion, if he knows what's going on with him these days. We went back and forth, and the guy is super, super busy, but he still took the time to come on this podcast, and I really appreciate that. I hope to have him on again. So that's enough about that. I don't want to spoil anything we're gonna talk about in this, but I do want to say that next week's guest will be Dennis Dunaway from the Alice Cooper Band, the original Alice Cooper Band. And just recently it was announced that Alice is touring the UK with the original band. Now, at the time of the interview with Dennis, he may have known or he may not have known, but maybe he couldn't spill the beans on it. But I'm really happy for him. That's great that the original Alice Cooper Band is going back out on the road. So, let's get to Mr. Michael Wagener. Here he is. I am here on the line with Michael Wagener, legendary producer. Also, this is going in video format too, so if you happen to catch us on YouTube, here we are. So how you doing today, Michael?
Doing great, thank you.
Thanks. I took quite the setup. Something's nice for me to look at that I'm viewing and for the people are viewing. It's almost like I'm looking at you're sitting in a guitar center.
Yeah, right. That's basically what it is.
All I can see is guitars, and you got all that outboard gear back there. That's awesome. And I have one rack case behind me. That's my.
That's all you need.
This came about. I just did the podcast with Mark Kendall from Great White, and he had a lot of nice things to say about you, and he thought you might be interested in doing this, and sure. I guess you were, which is cool. Let's talk about the Great White, the new album first, Full Circle, that comes out on June 2nd. Yeah. Kind of talk to me about, like, how did they approach you about doing it? I know you did their debut in their EP too, way back in the day, and I guess they wanted to go full circle on this. So how did that come about?
Well, back then I was living in the same house with Don Docton and Alan Niven, who was the manager for Great White. Yep. And that's how we originally met and got together when we did the EP, when I was still going back and forth between Germany and America. And then later on, when they got a deal, we did the first album together as well. And this time, I hadn't seen the guys, in forever, probably since that time, because, they went on tour, they did their thing, I did my thing, and we kind of I moved to Nashville, and. So, when we went in 2015, we went on the Monsters of Rock cruise, and Great White was on that too. And when they were playing, after the show, I walked up to him and said hello, and we talked for a while, and I go, hey man, might be cool if we do something together again. And that's how it came together. Mark goes, huh? You serious? I go, sure, I'm serious. Why not? And, a little while later, he contacted me and said, hey, we would really love to do this. And, what does it take? And so on and so on. That's how we got together.
See, the Monsters of Rock cruise, I've got to get on one of those. I've never been on one, and I've wanted to. It's on my bucket list.
Yeah, do it.
So, yeah, I'm going to NAMM this year for the first time in January. So that's, I can't, it's a month apart. My wallet can't handle both of those things. Yeah, well, I'm going to NAMM mainly. Well, I'm a guitar player too, so I want to go check out all the stuff, but also to kind of promote the podcast. But I will get to a Monsters of Rock cruise at some point. So now you're in Nashville. They obviously came out to Nashville, and Mark was saying that they weren't very rehearsed when they showed up.
Yeah, I was a little surprised because I'm normally used to when I do a project that the band sends me the initial demos, which are normally very rough. Then I do my little work on it, make my nasty remarks, and then after that we work over the phone, Skype for a while, and after that we get together in the band's rehearsal room and work on the songs and see what works and what doesn't work. But the timing with them having to play gigs and being on tour and all that was so tough that we couldn't do that. And literally, I got one song about 3 weeks before the project and all the other songs on the Saturday before the Monday that they arrived. So I had basically one day to look at the songs and work with it. And the songs were somewhat finished. There was a good ribcage and arrangement, but a lot of the lyrics weren't done. And I got really concerned because I normally work the other way around. I normally think that the vocals should be there first, and then you write the song around that. But they're writing the other way around, which works as well, as we saw on this record. So, there was a lot left to do, but they rented a house here in Nashville, and they did a lot of work there. We did some work here together on the lyrics, and we just worked through the songs as we were recording them. Normally we do pre-production, but this pre-production was in front of every song. So it was there, but kind of condensed.
Now, you said they didn't really have a lot of the lyrics. Did they have the melodies? Were the melodies there, or is that something you all worked on?
Yeah, melodies were mostly there. In a couple of spots we had to change them a little bit so the lyrics fit. And also on some of the songs we changed the arrangement a little bit, made a break longer or shorter, put a part in, took a part out, or moved it somewhere else, and therefore lyrics did change a little bit.
Yeah, Mark, I think you said you listened to the episode with Mark, and I hear, the whole record is great. I hear like 4 or 5, like if this was a time where radio was big and you could still get a hit signal, I hear 4 or 5 tracks on there that are strong, like right up there. Was it like a conscious effort to kind of just take them back to their roots, so to speak, or is it just the way it's
just the way Great White sounds?
Yeah.
Originally, way back then, Michael Lowdy was actually the engineer at the studio that we worked on those first few records at. And he later on joined the band. And then he later had produced a lot of their stuff. So when we started out, I was thinking, I hope that's not going to be weird. But it wasn't. Michael was absolutely awesome. He helped a lot in the studio with like setting up stuff. And, it was a lot of fun to work with him. But that's the Great White Sound. That's the band. They have developed that over the years. And with Mark being, let me call it, the main guy in terms of writing and being the guitar player, the direction is kind of set. That's what they do. They have this blues influence and the straight rock influence, and that's totally what came across on this record. And we didn't hold back. We didn't go, we should do this or that. No, it was just the way it came out.
No, so let's piggyback on that with Mark, because I know you're I can see it over your right shoulder back there, the Kemper. And I guess it took a little convincing.
Shoulder. There's another one there.
Oh, you got two. All right. Well, you had the lunch. Is it the lunch boxes over there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I had it made red, so.
Well, that's probably why I didn't recognize it. But yeah, I guess he said it took a little convincing. But he said once you A/B'd it with the real thing, he's totally on board with that. So, and I know you sell your own profiles, and I also sell profiles too. So I know all about the Kemper, and it's unbelievable. So is that when you're recording a band nowadays, are you trying to push them towards that more than using the other stuff, or is it really go on a case by case basis?
No, it normally is when I work with a band, they come to me because of what I do. So they kind of trust me. And obviously Mark was used to using amps, and he wasn't really aware of the Kemper at the time. So, or maybe he was aware of it, but he had never really worked with it in depth. So the first reaction of everybody is always like, no, let's not, I want a real amp and blah, 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 blah. And then by the time they find out that they are actually playing with a real amp, that is a real amp, as good or in some cases even better, then, they see how fast it goes, how easy it is to find new sounds. If you double a guitar track, you just go through the sounds, and within seconds you have the right sound, and obviously I have done, when the Kemper first came out, I go, why would I need this, and but obviously I have done real in-depth research into that box, and with being disappointed by other ones that were there before or are still there, that were never right, that never felt right, and so I did a lot of research and went deep into it, and in the end I was blown away. And I go, this is awesome. And I started working actually with Kemper. We started working out on, they came here for like a whole week, and we figured out how to do the separation of the cabinet, how to do the DI out, the straight out of the amp, and so on and so on. And so far, with every band that I've worked, these amps, you hardly can see any.
I've seen pictures.
Yeah. These amps haven't been on in 2.5 years.
Wow.
I mean, they're just furniture now, and I keep them, of course, just in case, I need something weird, I need something odd, or I need something very special. But other than that, they're all in the Kemper. Like you said, I'm selling my own rock pack, and so those amps are all available. And then another 16,000 other ones.
Yeah, because we were saying it's great, back then, before the Kemper, if you're, you track the whole album and you're in mixdown, and you bring your guitars in and something doesn't sound right on whatever it be. It may be a little fill or something major in the song just is not fitting in that mix. Before you would have to go back and try to re-mic those cabinets and get that sound that you had. Now you got it all stored in the Kemper. Right. So it's just a matter of putting the stick in and bringing up, if you label them correctly, bringing up that track.
Oh, yeah.
And just play it again.
On every guitar track, what guitar was used and what setting was used. And I make a new setting for every song, even if it's the same amp that we're using. But it's for each song, it's a new setting. And further than that, I always record a DI track.
Yes.
With every guitar, with every bass, and on the Great White record, there was a couple of cases because Mark's sound is not super distorted Mesa Boogie kind of stuff. Right. It's more cleanish, and he wants to hear every string. He wants to hear the amp coming back at him, So in a couple of cases, we went a little too clean on the track, and we go, well, it should have a little bit more power. So we just ran the DI track from what he played and added a little bit of a distortion track to it, and there we were.
Yeah, he did. Actually, now that you say that, he did mention that when I talked to him.
Yeah, it's right. It's like, sometimes in the mix, it's you go, damn, that's way too distorted. and you can't get rid of distortion once it's
Right.
on the track. So you just run the DI track out, re-record it, and then you have the advantage that you're hearing the guitar in the finished mix, and you completely can fit it in there.
Now, let's move aside from Great White for a bit here. And so, I mean, I was looking at your list, and most people know the bands that you've worked with. Give me one, whether it be a band, a singer, a bass player, a drum, a guitar player, one guy that just totally like surprised the hell out of you in the studio, that you were like, well, you know, you had a preconceived notion of what he was like, and then he came in and just totally blew your doors off. If you could pick one.
Well, Terry was at least one of them, you know, the singer for Great White, because I hadn't worked with him before, and I have a feeling on the previous record that Terry sang that they tried, whoever they is, tried to make him sound like Jack, you know, make him sing like Jack, and I don't care about that. I wanted to hear Terry, and he went in there and he's so delivered. I mean, the guy did not sing one wrong note on the whole album. He has extreme expression and feeling on the songs that he's doing. And so I was very surprised by that, especially at the point where I hadn't quite heard the lyrics yet, you know, when we started, you know, and once he went in there, you know, bam, no lyric sheet, right from the head, sing it straight out.
Now, Mark mentioned that you, anyway, with them, when you recorded them, and he wasn't used to doing this, that you did one song, you know, you got the drum track down and the guitars and bass played, and then they would go back and do their guitar and bass parts. But he said you would just concentrate on that one song before you moved on to something else. Is that, you do that with every band, or is that?
Yes, no, that's the way it works. The drums is always a big deal because you got 24 microphones in there, and then I use the room a lot for the drums itself, so I can't have anybody in there scraping on the guitar, even if the amp is someone else,
right?
Or running in front of microphones. So the drummer's all by himself in there. The band sits in here and plays along, but they basically play for the drummer. So if he's dragging a little bit, if he feels a little lazy, then they have to push him a little bit. And Terry was back there singing along, you know. And yeah, and then so you get the whole feel, the whole groove of the band, and the drums are played as if they were played with the band. And then you go and then you play, and now with the Kempers, it's so easy, you know. We had one for the bass and one for the guitar. Actually, we had one more from a friend of mine for Michael's guitar, you know. So we had 3 of them going at that time. And then we went back, and even though we kept, on 2 songs, we kept the bass because he played awesome, you know. So we kept the bass. That was recorded doing the drum tracks. And so I'm not against that. If everybody's playing well, then keep it, you know.
Right.
But yeah, and then once all that is out of the way, I go and do all 10 songs on bass. In most cases, band members staying in Nashville is a consideration. It's a financial consideration. They need hotels or whatever, you know. And in that case, if they're not singing, they can go back. And then we keep the guitar players, keyboard players, singers here, and from then on we do 1 song at a time, whereby we go in and we start in the morning with rhythm guitars and all instruments that the singer needs to have a note everywhere in the song. And then in the afternoon we do the vocals. I comp the vocals the next day, and then we do all the other guitar overdubs. So in 2 days, you have basically a rough mix of a finished song, which you can live with for the rest of the production time. And then at the end you go, that one vocal line there, let's do that again. You know, I want to play another lick in this break there. So you have some time to live with a finished song. And obviously you don't have to sing 10 songs in a row, play 10 solos in a row, which tends to be like conveyor belt work, and you know, you don't care about the sounds as much as if you start over on every song. Okay, this is a new song, new guitar, you know, and new sound. To me, it's much more creative that way.
I want to hit on one of my favorite albums of all time, which you produced, was Dog Eat Dog by Warrant.
Oh, yeah.
That, a lot of people like Dirty Rotten, they like Cherry Pie because it had, Cherry Pie and it had Heaven and all that other stuff. But to me, the sound of Dog Eat Dog is what pushed me towards that more than the other two. And
Right.
also Jeannie's writing, which was unbelievable on that album. How did when you would track, and the guitar sounds on that album are right up there for my favorite. So I don't know if you remember, like what type, and obviously weren't using the Kemper back then, but what were they using back then for
Well,
that album?
We had 10 Marshall amps and different amps set up in the studio and 10 cabinets. And then we would do the same thing we do with the Kemper now. We would go through the different amps and see which one and which guitar would fit best on that particular song. But it was obviously it's all live amps and microphones and so.
Yeah, well, that leads me to another one of my favorite albums, which is Pride by White Lion. And now Vito obviously is not playing anymore. Have you heard from him?
I talked to him when he did the interview with Eddie Trunk. I called him up afterwards and I begged him to, come back and do something, but he was not interested. And from a lot of musicians that I know, Vito was the smart one to keep all his money, and invest all his money and do good. And so now he's totally taken care of. But he said he had something with his wrist at some point, and that's when he stopped playing for a while, and he never really got back into playing, which I think is a massive loss for the music.
Yeah, because his playing was just like it was like Van Halen, but it had this like cleanliness to it that was just I don't know how to describe it. I try to play some of his stuff and I just want to throw the guitar out the window, but he just had this technique that. Like you heard every single little note that he was playing in there. When a lot of guys play fast, it sounds like they're just trying to get through that run. Right. But when he played, you heard you could pick out every note that he was playing in there. And that, just how was that just sitting there? Like, is he one of those guys where you just said hit the record and didn't have to worry about it, or did you have to really push him?
No, I have to say Vito was one of the guys that works out everything right before. So when he came into the studio, the rhythm tracks were worked out anyway because we did pre-production. Mm-hmm. But when he came into the studio and he did solos, there were, I think, 90% there. The solo on Wait. Mm-hmm. Was actually played with a little groove tube amp that I called a Chevy, because it's chrome and red, and it was played while we did the drum tracks.
Wow.
And we kept it. We never changed it. We go, why play that again? It's perfect, And it was an amp that was plugged in straight, no speaker, straight into the console, and we got that sound out of it.
Well, that's good to know because I know a lot of guys that are try to get the tone on that lead for that song, and you go crazy trying to figure out what was used, and now you're telling me it was directing to the board, which is crazy to think.
From the amp, it's a groove tube amp.
Yep.
It was a 30-watt amp. It was the first one that had a direct out, speaker out that you could run through the console, and that was used. And well, it's on my rock pack for the Kemper if you need it.
I don't have a Kemper anymore too, so well, that's good for other guys to know about that, the rock pack. All right, so another album I'm not going to go through the whole list of albums that you've worked on.
Do me one favor.
Yeah.
Pick up that damn guitar and come on down and we'll do something.
You know what? I'm going to be in Nashville next month.
Oh, cool.
For a couple of days, and I was actually talking to Michael. Michael Britt.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. He's another Kemper guy. I was talking to him, and he wanted me to hit him up when I head down there. So I don't know if you give a tour of the studio.
Hi.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I think it's June 19th and 20th. I think I'm going to be down there.
Yeah.
I'll text you or whatever and
good.
See what happens. But yeah, I'd love to come in there and check that stuff out. I might not want to leave though. All right, so I'm not going to go through the whole list of what work you did. Everybody knows your discography, but one last one that I wanted to ask about was Skid Row's "Slave to the Grind."
Hmm.
That was, coming off their first the debut, which was more to me not poppy but more radio, I guess, ready. And then they went with that, and it was just brutal right off the top. The guitar again, everything with me is guitar tones, so that I'm always asking. I get a lot of guitar player friends that listen to this. So like Dave Sabo and Scotty, how did they were they another band that had everything rehearsed, or was it something that you kind of in the studio helping put that together?
I tend to not do anything in the studio, especially at those times when the studio was $2,500 a day. You tend to not waste time in the studio. So with Skid Row, we did pretty much almost a month's worth of pre-production. And we really got involved with the songs, worked it all out. We actually then, for Slave, we went into a full-on digital Neve studio and recorded the whole record. And actually, the song Slave to the Grind is the demo from that session. It never got touched again. It
Wow.
didn't even get remixed. That song was recorded and mixed in 1 hour. So, and that is, that was the demo session for this. So, yeah, it was all worked out by the time we went down to New River and did the record down there. But, that's normally the way I work. I want the songs to be to at least 90%. I leave some stuff open, but the melody and the drum accents and the bass and drum interaction and rhythm guitars, that's all worked out. Solos are still, okay, you play me a solo and then we see if we like it.
Yeah, one other thing that people might not know that you have done, but you've done work with Ozzy and Metallica, Megadeth, Alice Cooper. You actually were the engineer for Janet Jackson on Black Cat.
Actually, I was the engineer for the remix.
The remake, yeah, I was going to say the single version. Was that right?
Yeah, the album was already out, Rhythm Nation was already out, but she wanted to cross over into rock a little bit more. And Black Cat was, I think, one of the few songs that she had written on that album. And I was in the middle of the Extreme album, and A&M approached me and asked me if I wanted to mix that song. And I got together with Nuno and said, hey, is that possible? He goes, yeah, let's do it. And because he was a big fan of hers too. Mm-hmm. And we ended up having Nuno playing the rhythm guitars on that song. And actually, at the time, it was still tapes, and there was a stack of tapes this high, with that version, just that song with like 4 different drum sets and different people playing. Vernon Reid fed a solo through the whole song, and it was pretty excessive. And then we picked the best parts and we had Nuno play the rhythm guitars, and then I just mixed it.
Well, bringing up Nuno, that's another one of my go-to guys listening to guitar. He has to be the most, as far as a guitar player goes, the most percussive guitar player I've heard.
Yeah, definitely.
Like his style, it's not. It sounds like he's almost playing drums on the guitar sometimes.
Right. And he's another guy that has everything worked out.
Yeah.
The Extreme album was the most worked out record that I've produced. There was nothing lot to change. It was just a matter of going in, keeping the band on track in terms of what they were planning to do, and just do the record, let them play, and it worked out good.
That's Pono Graffiti, if anybody's wondering. But I'm going to wrap it up here. I mean, that a lot of stuff.
Already?
Oh yeah, I know you have work to do. I gotta get moving on too. But I was a little late because you already know my Mac went down today. So, but it's working, which is great, because then we would have had to reschedule. But I'm glad it got working. Yeah, but I'll hit you up. I definitely want to, if I can, when I'm down there, check out the studio.
Absolutely.
Cool. And maybe we can do like a live stream on Facebook or something, walking through.
Sure.
That'd be great. All right, Michael. I appreciate it.
Cool. No problem, man. Anytime.
Thank you. And I'm sure, like I said, check out Great White's new album, Full Circle, out on June 2nd. Michael's the producer. And you mentioned you had 2 other projects recently, too. Anything with...
Project Alta was an EP with a 18-year-old young guy from Colorado called Jacob Cade.
Okay.
That will most likely be released in January. Interesting record, very interesting record. He's a very modern guy, and he co-wrote songs with Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm, Rachel Bolan from Skid Row, and Paul Taylor from Winger. So it's an interesting record, and I'm pretty happy the way it came out. And then I just did a remix with a band called Walker from Ireland.
Okay. Cool. Well, everybody, check out those, and I'm gonna ask you to remind me January for that other one. That sounds interesting. Paul Taylor, Love Winger. So thanks so much for your time.
Anytime, man.
Cool. Have a good one. Talk to you soon.
Bye bye.
And there you have it, Michael Wagener, mega producer Michael Wagener. Sorry, I have to call him mega producer because that's exactly what he is. Take some time and go check out even his wiki file. Check out his discography, because the list of bands and albums, and it's going to surprise you, because I thought I knew like everything that he worked on, and then I went and looked at that list, and it's just staggering. Go check it out, and then go back and listen to some of these albums, because the recordings, like the raw sounds that he gets, it's so good. Just listen to it. That's all I'm asking. All right, so thanks again to Michael, and again, check out his website, michaelwagener.com, Wagener. Now, next week, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, is original Alice Cooper bassist Dennis Dunaway, and then after that, I'll have Michael Devin from Whitesnake, I believe Elliot Lewis from Hall & Oates, and I just finished recording with Scotty Dunbar, so that will be coming up in the weeks to follow. So, as I always say when I end this podcast, share, subscribe, all that good stuff on social media. That's the only way, the easiest way actually, that this podcast is going to get out to more people, and I can start getting more and more guests on the podcast. So, until next time, take care.